Hi there, I'm Laurence Keane, the writer-producer of Big Meat Eater, and I'm going to try and answer a few questions. I would have loved to do a live Skype interview, but unfortunately I'm in transit today. And in the backdrop we have lovely Vancouver, if my cinematographer can just take a shot there of the skyline, so that's where we are. It's a bit chilly right now, but we thought we'd give you a nice view so you'd at least have something nice to look at rather than just me. So Elvira, my producing partner here on my latest projects, will be asking me a few questions, some of which have been emailed to me and some of which I've kind of added in. So go ahead, Elvira.
So Laurence, where did you get the idea for Big Meat Eater?
Well, the idea came about from my student film, really. And there was a character that his name was close to Bob Sanderson, let's put it that way. And my student film was called Campus Carnage. It was kind of a 1950s satire on bad movies. So that's really where it developed. And the fellow that directed and co-wrote the script with me, Chris Windsor, we kind of developed that idea based upon that character.
And can you tell us something about the production and financing hurdles?
Yeah, compared to nowadays it was very easy, although at the time it seemed very difficult. But we did have something called the Canadian tax shelters back then, when you could just raise private financing and make the movie that way rather than going to bureaucrats. So the finished budget of the film was about $150,000 to $175,000. And what we did, originally we raised, once we got to $80,000, we decided to start shooting. And then while the shooting was going on, I raised the rest of the money with the assistance of my father, who happened to be in the investment community, and he had a lot of good contacts. This is the type of film that nowadays, it's so crazy that if you went to bureaucrats and tried to get it financed, there's absolutely no way that you would get it financed. So that was one of the great things about having the tax shelter days, when filmmakers could directly go to investors and pitch their ideas rather than getting it vetted by bureaucrats who really tend to be a little conservative, as you would know in Ottawa.
So you never really had to pitch the film?
Never pitched it. Yeah, I've spent a long time pitching other projects and had a lot of frustration, but no, we didn't pitch this project, not at all, no. Even when it was made and we exhibited it ourselves. We actually did a four-wall situation where we rented the theaters ourselves and did our own publicity, and we called it guerrilla distribution at the time. And we actually got a lot of good word of mouth. Variety gave us a fantastic review, which led to a British deal and also led to a Toronto Film Festival screening, which then led to United Artists Classics and New Line bidding for the film. So we eventually went with New Line, and that's a whole other story.
So what was the premiere at Toronto Film Festival like? The
premiere was great, actually. It was great fun, very well received, and we got great reviews, and generally great reviews. J Scott of the Globe and Mail, who was kind of the reigning film critic in Canada at the time, loved the film and gave it a great review. We had a funny thing that happened, though, is that when it was going to be distributed much later on, the Canadian censor, or the Ontario Censor Board, banned the movie, which was kind of interesting. And J Scott actually came to the rescue and said he was going to write an article, and they had to back down. I think, unfortunately, in the end, it actually did us more harm getting it unbanned, and it would have been great for the picture and for publicity to have it on the poster, banned in Ontario.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about the general release, about the screens and so forth that the film was on?
Yeah, it was released in England, and we had great response in England from Palace Pictures, and they were a very good distributor in England. The filmmakers behind that and film distributors behind that have gone on to make many feature films and have become an integral part of the British film industry. It was named one of the top 10 films of the year by Time Out, and a few other publications in England. Got reviewed by all of the big publications like the Times, etc., etc. Canada and U.S. was a bit different. New Line Cinema took the picture on in the States. They were going to distribute it first in Seattle, and they were going to open it at, I think it's something called the Four Gables in Seattle, which happened to have a vegan restaurant.
I think it was the Egyptian.
Oh, the Egyptian, my partner here is telling me. But they had a vegan restaurant, and the vegan restaurant apparently got very upset that a film called Big Meat Eater was going to open in the same structure as where they were located. So that was canceled, and really they never really did much after that. They didn't put a lot of energy into it. And they pretty well put it straight to video. In Canada, they gave it to a distributor called Citadel, and we lost control of it as far as distribution ourselves. Citadel had it in the Cineplex in Toronto, and it was doing very well. It ran for very many weeks. I think it was 6 to 8 weeks. I don't know, it might have even been more. And the box office kept on getting bigger and bigger. And eventually, apparently the Smurfs came in, and the Smurfs took over half the screens, and we got bounced, which was very disappointing, but that shows you what happens to a small Canadian picture. And it made some sales to pay TV, etc., etc.
But you had a great run in the festival circuit.
Yeah, a great run in the festivals. We went to the Edinburgh Film Festival in England, or in Scotland, pardon me, and that was great. Mill Valley in California, the Dallas Film Festival in Texas, and all around, actually. It was great. Great response. Lots of fun.
I'm just looking for my... So how did you manage to get Big Miller involved in the film?
Yeah, that was interesting. Originally we had somebody else we wanted to cast, and he had been in our student films. So we kind of wrote the part, and then we approached the fellow, and the fellow got pretty upset because he was now the manager of a London drugstore, and there was absolutely no way he was going to give up his career or put it in any kind of jeopardy by being in a movie. The acting business was over for him totally. But it so happened that Chris's friend had directed a film called Big's Blues in Edmonton about Big Miller. And we took a look at the film, and as soon as we saw Big Miller in action, we said, we got to have this guy, he'll be great. As it turned out, he was great, and he was a real gentleman and a wonderful human being to work with.
Can you tell us a little bit about the special effects in the movie?
They're pretty tacky. The director, Chris, and myself, we have our bit parts. We play the robots. We have the voices of the robots. We built an entire town. I guess it was about, about 8 by 10, just a structure we had to build of Burquitlam. And we built a Cadillac because they didn't make model Cadillacs at the time. They took an old Chevrolet and had to build that and make it look like a Cadillac. And the real Cadillac, we actually put a bunch of acetylene tanks in and set fire to stuff, and I'm surprised we didn't blow it up. Nowadays, there's absolutely no way you'd be able to do those kind of effects. And I'm trying to think of other stuff. We threw Andrew Gillies, who plays the monster, we threw him into a swamp and put a wetsuit on him, and that was pretty exciting.
And then you had Todd McIntosh.
Oh, Todd McIntosh, a great makeup artist who did the masks and did the fingers that get chopped off, we created a hand, and yeah, that's about it. Lots of other things.
And whose idea was it to make it a musical?
I think that was kind of my idea, yeah, but in conjunction with Chris. I always like film musicals. We wanted to do something totally different. It was really a reaction against a lot of the boring movies that we'd seen being made in Canada at the time. So we wanted to do something really kind of crazy and outrageous. And I remember we spent many a night writing lyrics in the Chinese restaurant in Kitsilano and just on napkins and figuring out all these crazy songs we were going to do, all kinds of different genres. And then we worked with a really wonderful musician, J Douglas Dodd, who was able to take those words and put wonderful music around them, as well as we included a couple of songs that he'd been involved in beforehand and included them in the movie.
So here's a funny question that they asked: was any anger or backlash due to the ethnic parodies?
Funny, no, I mean none whatsoever. And we really never saw it as a parody. We saw it as a satire on bad movies and on multicultural movies that we were making at the time in Canada, and on B movies as well. And I think, you know, as a satire on bad Canadian cinema, I think it's pretty successful.
So if somebody wanted to get hold of the movie now, because it's no longer being distributed by Koch Vision on DVD, because they were bought out by E1 and they stopped selling the DVD, so now we're selling it ourselves. So can you tell a little bit how people can get a copy of the DVD?
Sure, they can contact us through bigmeateater.com. But that's a funny story. Here you have a Canadian film that's distributed by a company in the United States. That company gets bought by a Canadian company who then stops distributing the Canadian film. So that's the way it works for Canadian filmmakers, be warned. So yeah, on our website we're selling it, and hopefully we'll be able to release a Blu-ray in the future. We're not sure exactly when, but that would be the plan.
So it can be rented, downloaded, or you can buy a DVD.
Okay, I've been told, if you can hear that, rent, download, or buy a DVD. bigmeateater.com. And I want to thank you all. If there's anybody remaining in the audience right now, thank you for coming to the screening. I really appreciate it. And bye from Vancouver.
Yeah, and here's a bit more of our wonderful view.